Hey everyone, I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be talking about what I read in January 2016, or in a word, my reading wrap up. January was a really good month, and I read some really interesting books, one of which was suggested to me in a comment during last month's wrap up, and that book I did enjoy, which I'll get around to in a minute. Anyway, without further ado, I'll start talking about the books in question. The first book that I read was Worth Dying For by Lee Child. This is the 15th book in the Jack Reacher series. This is an ongoing series. He is just about to release the 21st book, I think. I could be mistaken, it could even be the 22nd. And this is an action thriller about the main character, who is of course called Jack Reacher, who is a ex-military policeman in America who, ever since leaving the army, has been wandering around America exploring, and he keeps getting himself into situations, obviously hence the plots of the various books. In this one, he ends up in Nebraska. This is kind of a direct follow-on from the events of the previous book, which I'm not going to spoil, but he's not in the best of condition, both mentally or physically, and he ends up getting mixed up with this very nasty and unpleasant family, who are obviously some sort of criminals of some kind, because, well, that's the kind of purpose of all the books. You know, he always ends up being involved with criminals, and he gets thrown into the middle of things and has to figure out how to sort of get out of them without getting generally murdered and imprisoned, or both, one after another. So this I actually really did enjoy. This was one of the more interesting ones. There was lots of different characters working at multiple different purposes. Jack Reacher did not know everything, and even he couldn't figure out what was going on at times. Often he can. This one was a little bit more hard to predict, and the twists in it were quite interesting, and I actually did enjoy this thoroughly, and I gave it a good 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The next two books were Heretics of Dune by Frank Herbert and Chapter House Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 5th and the 6th book in the Dune saga. Frank Herbert himself only wrote 6, so these are the final 2. There are more books in the Dune world, not written by Frank Herbert, written by his son Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, I believe his name is. Frank Herbert himself died less than a year after the release of this in 1985, and this finishes off the Dune saga finally, and I'm really glad I've read these. These are the first time I've ever read them. As you know, I like the original Dune, and now I've finally finished Frank Herbert's vision for Dune, and I am extremely happy that I've read them. I also really enjoyed them. Heretics and Chapter House are linked quite heavily. I mean, this follows on directly from the 5th. The first 3 books follow on more closely together. The 4th follows on a lot differently, and then these follow on from a long way after the 4th. I really enjoyed these two. They explain lots of little ideas and details that you didn't know, obviously, in the earlier books, and finally all these little threads that are dotted around the place all start weaving in and out, and all start to weave together finally, and he explains many different ideas, all to do with the Bene Gesserit, however you pronounce it, and the Talaxu, and the various other sort of races and creatures and concepts within the earlier novels start to come together quite well in this. And frankly, if you like the original Dune, I mean really like it, then you'll probably want to read the further books, because these do really explain so many little things that it's just nice to read. It really is. I'm going to do a video all about the 6 Dune Saga books in the semi-near future, probably in the next month. So I'm not going to say anything more. Oh, and if you didn't know, they're science fiction, but they read like fantasy books pretty much. The next 2 things I read on my Kindle, so I don't have a physical copy, although obviously I'll put up a picture here somewhere. And that is Clarkesworld magazine, issue 111 and issue 112. 111 were December's issue and 112 was January's issue. I took out a free trial of the magazine, and suffice to say, my trial will continue and become a proper paying subscription, and indeed I will have the February issue to read on my Kindle within days, and I'm really interested in reading these, and indeed I've really enjoyed reading them. It is a science fiction short story magazine. There are 4 new short stories in it and 2 older ones, what they call classic, which basically just means that they are being featured in another magazine previously before Clarkesworld. And then there are a few non-fiction articles and little pieces, and I've really enjoyed them really thoroughly. I'm going to do a video probably monthly about these, as I've said in a previous video. I'm not going to say too much now, but suffice to say, the stories, they may well be short, but the ideas in them are frankly brilliant, and you can read each month online for free, although there is a slight limiting factor on it in that you can only read February's issues of this in March, March's issue in April in May, and so on. You know, basically it's a month delayed because you're reading it free. Obviously I've got a subscription though, so I'm able to read it on the first day of the month, which I'm very happy about, and I'm happy to support Clarkesworld because this was a brilliant magazine and one that I'm definitely going to be continuing for probably years, I suspect, many years. The next book that I also read on my Kindle, and that was the one that was suggested to me in last month's wrap-up video, and that is The Lost Continent by Edgar Burroughs. If you've read the Barthoon books, or otherwise known as John Carter of Mars, by him, this follows a similar kind of feel and sort of similar format. You have a heroic main character who is a sort of very manly man, and he's also fairly chauvinistic in many respects, frankly, but obviously that was the sort of time it was written, I suppose. And he is part of the American Navy in this weird alternative history version of Earth. He, on his flying sort of submarine essentially, which sounds really peculiar but it kind of works, he ends up going off course in going beyond this particular latitude mark where nobody is allowed to go, and he ends up basically in Europe, and in particular right off England. So he ends up going to the Lost Continent, which is basically England, and exploring and finding out that things have got a lot worse than what we're used to. I mean, I am English, and as far as I'm aware, there are no lions running around London eating everybody. I'm pretty sure I would have heard about it on the news, so this is a very different kind of England, and it's an interesting one as well because the characters are odd in some ways, and they're very chauvinistic and they're very stereotypical in certain ways, but like the Barthoon books, they're just fun regardless of the flaws, which there are quite a few, and indeed the plots points don't always go together. It's just so fun to read, and it's easy to read as well. Frankly, it's just really enjoyable, and you can also download it for free legally off the Project Gutenberg website, which is indeed where I got this from. So I'd recommend you reading this. It's just an interesting little easy read. The penultimate book that I read was Revolt in 2100 by Robert Heinlein. Robert Heinlein is a well-known author within science fiction, well known for some of his rather odd ideas and debatable opinions at times, admittedly. He was writing mainly in the 70s, I believe. I could be mistaken, but that was some of his most noticeable work in the 70s, I believe. And this is one where it is all about a revolution, obviously, in 2100, where the world is indeed advanced. They've got some really advanced technology, but they've also got a really weird and really sort of severe totalitarian religion going on, where everything is according to this religion. And the story is quite interesting because it's kind of split up. The main book and the main story, which is most of the book to be honest, is about the same sort of 2 characters. It's about one member of the sort of this religious type of guard, and a sort of priestess type woman that he happens to fall in love with, and they basically want to escape this sort of terrible system that they're in, where they're sort of told everything they're allowed to do and everything they're not, and sort of be free. And then there's a shorter story afterwards which follows on, not those characters, in a different part of the world, set an unknown number of years afterwards. I'm not sure how many, but not that long afterwards. And then there's a very short story at the very end, which is only about 10 pages long, which is set quite some years afterwards. You probably at least 50 years after the events of the main story, and that's set well, differently. I don't want to give away spoilers, but it's very different. But it follows on the idea of this revolution and the effects that the revolution and what happened with it had. It's a really interesting book, and the writing style is odd in a lot of ways, and it's only quite different from what I'm used to, but it was fun, and the ideas were really good, solid ideas. Yeah, with some cliches and some stereotypes in them, but nowadays that's kind of unavoidable, because what isn't a stereotype with the amount of books that are out? And I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And the final book that I finished reading, although it was actually the first book I started to read, but it took me the entire month to read, was Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan. This is the 6th book in the Wheel of Time series. It is an epic fantasy series. There are 14 of them in total. This is massive. It's 1,000 page. It's pretty heavy, and frankly that was the main reason why it took me the whole month to read, because it's not the most comfortable book to physically hold open and read due to the sheer size. The story I liked, but like the other books, at times the story is brilliant, and then at times it's like, it's very debatable, and I just didn't enjoy it. But overall, by the time you finish the book and you reflect back on it, actually the pros outweigh the cons on this. It is a good book. There are a few nasty moments, like I've said, which really do make you question whether you even want to continue with these books, but overall it's just really good, and I really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend the series to people if you've got some time on your hands, because there are 14 of them. Most of them are pretty large, so you really do need some serious time available. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So that's it for the 8 things I've read this month, and I'm very happy that I've read all of them. If you've read any of these or would like to read any of them, then please drop me a comment below and we can have a conversation. Or if you ever have a book that you think I might like, then please, suggest it, and indeed like this month, I may or may not read it. I'm not going to say I will, of course, and we'll see what happens. All my social media links can be found in the description box below, as they always are. And with that said, that's it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.